Good morning, Key Stage 3. We haven't done a video for a while, so I thought it'd be important to have another look at self-quizzing so that you can see exactly how it should be done in your books. So I'm going to do a little bit of an example here with DT. So I'm pretending it's a Thursday night, I've got DT homework, and I'm going to look at 3D printing as directed by my teacher. So I've written my title, I've underlined it, I've written my date, I've underlined it, and I'm ready to go because I have my ruler, I have my pen, and I've got a highlighter today just to help me out to keep things a little bit clearer in my book. Okay, step 1 with any self-quizzing is to read the information that I've been told to look at. So I'm looking on page 23 as directed by my teacher, and I have discovered that on this big knowledge organizer here with all this really interesting information, the only bit I need to look at is right down at the bottom here where it says 3D printer. There's a lovely picture so I can see what a 3D printer looks like, and then here's my information in the box. That's the bit I need to learn. And so I'm going to take my highlighter and I'm just going to highlight all of that just really quickly. I think I might need to buy a new highlighter. But you can see there that now it's really clear for me which bit I'm looking at today. I don't need to think about any of that. I'm just concentrating on this one little bit. So that's step 1, find the information. Step 2 is to read the information and underline anything that I think might be really important, like a keyword or a fact. So 3D printing, I need to know what it's called. Also known as additive manufacturing, is a method of creating a three-dimensional object. I think that's important. That's the final thing that is made with a 3D printer, which is made by adding layer upon layer of a specific material such as a plastic, and then in brackets it says PLA, using a computer-generated design. I think that's probably interesting and important at the end there. So I've got these little bits of information. I'm just going to number them as well, just because that's going to help me when I come up with my self-quizzing questions later on. So I've potentially got 5 bits of information there that I need to learn. I need to know what they mean, and I need to know how to write about them correctly in my book. Step 3 is where I need to generate some questions to then test myself on or quiz myself on. So looking at the information I've got here, it looks like I've potentially got 4 or 5 questions worth of material. So I'm going to reread the first bit, 3D printing, also known as additive manufacturing. Okay, that bit of information I need to know off by heart. So I'm going to create a question in my book. It's going to help test me on that. My question is going to be, what is another name for additive manufacturing? And the answer will be 3D printing. So I'm taking that information, flipping it and turning it into a question. I'm going to write it down for you now to show you what it could look like in your book. I'm just going to wait for it to focus. There we go. What is another name for additive manufacturing? I could have asked what's another name for 3D printing. Okay, and I'm going to leave a little bit of a gap there for me to put my answer in a minute. Then I move on to question 2. Okay, I've got my information here. This is what it creates, a 3-dimensional object, which means a 3D object. So I'm going to write a question that's going to give me the answer, 3D object. And now I'm going to carry on and just write my other questions. I'm going to fast forward this so you can see it nice and quickly. So step 4 is when I'm finally ready to quiz myself to see if I've actually learnt that information or not. So this needs to be put to one side, okay, to stop me from doing any cheating. I don't want to look at my knowledge organiser. I want to see from my own brain if I can remember these things. So I'm going to quiz myself now. I've got my questions ready. I've got a different colour pen so that I can write my answers and see very clearly where my answers are. And again, I'm going to fast forward through this so that you can just see how very quickly, what it looks like to do this in your book. And you can see there, I felt quite confident in the first ones, but I can't actually remember number 5. How do I design a 3D model? And so I need to go back to my knowledge organizer at this point and just have another look. While I'm checking through my answers, I can see which ones I did not quite get right. I can tick the ones I've done right, and then I can find the answer for the ones that I don't know or correct. So 3D printing, that's correct. 3D models, yeah. Builds layers one by one. Plastic is the material, and I could just add there in brackets PLA, just in case my DT teacher asks me next lesson. And the one I didn't know, how do I design a 3D model? Let's go back to the information. It says here, using a computer created design. Okay, so I need to use a computer essentially. That tells me I can't sketch out my design to make a 3D model. I need to use a computer, and the computer then tells the printer what to print. I now feel like I've got a successful understanding of 3D printing, so when my teacher asks me in some cold calling or in my Do Now next lesson, I should be able to be really confident in giving the answers to this. It also means that if I should ever need to do some 3D printing at school or in my job when I'm older, I know the basics of how a 3D printing machine works.